Okay, now it's 6:30. So I will call the meeting of the East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission for February 8th, 2022. It's meeting 1820 to order. The meeting is entirely by Zoom. We have a quorum with all of the regular members present, and we have our alternate Dave Leeson too. So we're in very good shape tonight. On added agenda items, I would like to add the March 24th PZC training that I sent to all of you, that notice somewhere on the agenda, maybe under new business or correspondence, either one. And I thought maybe we should get an update from Ruth Ann on where we stand with getting a zoning enforcement officer. So those are the two suggested additions to the agenda. Does somebody want to make a motion to add those?
I'll make a motion that we add a discussion on the March 24th PZCC meeting and discussion of the progress of a zoning enforcement officer under our business meeting section, section 16.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, Peg, that's unanimous. For legal notice, we do have a legal notice. It's for the East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing today, Tuesday, February 8th at 6:30 p.m. This will be a virtual meeting. Details regarding how to attend will be published on the commissioner's agenda, which will be made available on the town's website, which was done. It's concerning PZ 2022-2. It's for a zone change, map change. The applicant is Gil Tugas, who wishes to change the zoning district for 268 South Main Street, East Windsor, map 2, block 5, lot 94. Currently a B2 zone, and he wants to change it to an R1 zone. A full copy of the application is available on the Planning and Zoning Commission's webpage. Any interested people may attend and provide verbal or written comments to the board. And that was published in the Journal Inquirer on January 26th and February 3rd, 2022. So we will be taking that up on our agenda tonight. For public participation, is there anybody here who wants to raise something that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing and hearing nothing, we'll move to approval of minutes. We got the minutes for our regular meeting 1819, which was held January 25th, 2022. It was entirely done on Zoom. The meeting notices or the draft meeting minutes were in your package. Does anybody have any changes or edits they need made to those minutes? Okay. Frank, you were not here.
I abstained.
Dave, okay, Dave was. So for this item, I'm going to ask Dave to vote in your stead, if that's okay. So could we get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve regular meeting minutes 1819 of the Planning and Zoning Commission held on January 25th, 2022, as presented.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Peg, that was unanimous. Dave was
I
voting.
abstained.
Frank abstained. So Dave voted for him. That takes us to receipt of applications. Ruth Ann, I assume we have no new applications?
That's correct. There are no new applications.
Okay, then the next order of business is performance bonds, actions, permit extensions, and road acceptance. And we were going to talk about Harvest View Estates.
Since we last met, I know in the packet, I had some information and a draft motion. But since that time, I have received at least the PDF version of the renewed bond, and was contacted by the attorney for Harvest View Estates today, saying that the original document will be delivered to us.
So you don't think there's a need to call the bond? We have enough time for the next meeting to occur to see if there's any issue? Hopefully everything's
Hopefully,
resolved.
yeah, I in the packet that I had sent you, you should see the PDF version of the renewal that goes through March 21st, 2023.
Oh,
And I don't have the original, but I've been told it's coming.
Okay, so at this point, no action is needed on that.
I do not believe so, no.
Why did it wait so long? Fourth and long here. It just came in today. Joe, what do you think about that?
That was March 21st, 2022.
Go ahead,
Was it-
Ruth.
Yeah, expires. Yeah.
You can talk,
Yes.
Ruth.
Yeah, what's that? Go ahead.
I said, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, we did receive the renewal in response to the letter. What I had in the packet was prior to receiving the renewed bond. And I got it by way of email and asked for the original document, you know, like the hard document, so
Yeah.
that we can have that on file.
So my opinion is, number one, Ruth has done a great job actually getting this guy to commit to continuing the bond, because it's a developer and, you know, he's been a really challenge to work with, I guess you can say. And I know Ruth's been working with Lenny about, you know, getting to the bottom of what's left to be done. So I think if we wait until the next meeting, it still gives us time to call it, because it doesn't expire until March, right? March 1st? With
March
this
20.
renewal,
or March?
it's March 31st, 2023. So that way you get to go through the construction season, and if you're not happy, you can.
Yeah, I think if my only suggestion would be is maybe we try to put a stipulation on him and get him to get it done. Because they just keep kicking the can down the road, and, you know, he had all year to do it. But,
Yep,
you know,
and-
he gets sidetracked and he does other things.
Is it that, or it's people are hoping asphalt gets cheaper because the price of oil is high?
No, it actually, he could have saved himself probably 20 to 25% if he would have done it, you know, once he was
Ready.
completed with the road in there. We could have taken possession of it and that would have been the end of it. But, you know, it's just the way they do it. They all operate the same way, and, you know, Ruth got a great response from them, and I think we're fine. I mean, ultimately, the town would probably prefer that they finish the project rather than us try to do it.
Is it just the road or is there stormwater under the road that needs to get dealt with, or that works fine?
You want me to answer again, Ruth?
Well, my understanding is there are some particular issues that need to be addressed with leveling the pavement to meet the curbing and the catch basins that got moved for drainage purposes, and some driveway aprons that needed some repair because there was flooding. And then an as-built will be required. And if there are other issues with the construction of the road, they'll show themselves through the as-built review process. And that's what we relayed to the developer. To my knowledge, there's not continuing flooding issue. I know over on Jesse Lane and in between some yards, they had to modify some drainage to alleviate flooding over there. I don't know if Joe, if you know of more.
No, I think they took care of the East Road problem with the driveway. You know, they, like you said, they might be an apron or two they have to do. But, you know, I mean, and they have just some curbing repair and, you know, just for the final sign off. You know, I mean, other than that, there's no major work that needs to be done, we hope. But all the drainage, all that's in. And we inspected that as they put it in anyways.
And I agree, Ruth's been doing a great job. It's frustrating. We have to chase these guys down, every developer, every project. That's all.
Well, I would guess that maybe in the next project, or maybe, you know, down the road, maybe we come up with an easier policy for the town staff to try to handle this stuff. You know, I don't know. I can't spin off the top of my head, but, you know, there's a lot of work going on the day to day, and for her to have to spend all this time chasing this guy is not right for her, because it takes her focus away from other things.
And it's really not her job. It's on them to take care of it and come in. But anyways,
Well, thank you, Ruth Ann, for doing it. And we've seen what happens when the town isn't on top of it. So it's great you were able to get this one resolved for now. And hopefully we can get it to closure. Anything else on this topic?
I do not have anything else.
We have no continued public hearings, so we will open the new public hearing on application PZ 2022-2 for 268 South Main Street. And it's a request for a zone change from B2 to R1. Does the applicant want to present this? Is the applicant here?
I guess he can't answer any questions unless he's here.
And Ruth Ann, you're on mute, so if you were telling us something, we can hear you.
Thank you. I was asking if Lucy Helland is the name that's covering for the portal that Gil is on. Not me, she says in the text.
Okay,
Okay. I don't know where our applicant is. No one in the waiting room.
so
Do
Should
you
we-
know the reason for the zoning change? What is he looking to
Yes.
accomplish with?
So what he'd like to do is, you know, it's commercial on the main floor of that house, dwellings up above. He's been unable to secure any commercial tenants, and he's looking to put 3 dwelling units in that structure. Rather than have commercial, he'd like to be able to have 2 apartments down the bottom.
is it big enough for 2 apartments? I remember when it was Creations by Carla, the hair salon, and it never
Mhm.
seemed that big, and then she lived above it.
I don't know.
And then I would also wonder, what are the what's the abutting zoning?
It's B1. It's surrounded.
By
Oh, the
B1?
B2 zone. While we're talking, we did get a letter in from someone regarding this application. I could, it was put online and I think emailed to you today, but I could read it into the record if you like.
Sure.
Okay. The header is LCC Partnership, PO Box 388, East Windsor, Connecticut 06088. It's addressed to the Town of Windsor, Planning and Zoning Commission, 11 Rye Street, Broadbrook, to my attention. And it reads, Dear Director Calabrese, we write today in regards to the application PZ 2022-2 as the owner of 275 South Main Street. This zoning change could potentially impact the continued development on Route 5. The requested zoning change is inconsistent with the Route 5 corridor study, delineating this area as a business and commercial area with substantial infrastructure to support its continued growth. It is for that reason that we oppose the zoning change and continue to support the use of Route 5, consistent with many of the recommendations of the Route 5 corridor study. Please contact me with any questions. J. Garrison, Hudskins, agent.
The other thing that I can tell you about that property, I'll say 30 years ago, when I went to that hair salon, I used to go there. In the summer, there was I'll call it a cattle feed lot that abutted it. And it was only used for a short time in the summer before I think they slaughtered the cattle. And there was a bad odor problem. Don't know if it's still there. I haven't been there in 30 years. But my sense is if we don't have the applicant to present it,
Mhm.
I think they need to make the case on why.
I agree. I agree 100%.
So should we continue this to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Does somebody wanna? Oh, sorry.
One-
Yes.
Bruce, have you had any discussion with the applicants at all? Because I'm looking at the reg and residential is allowed in the B2 area under a special use permit. So what is he trying to accomplish that a special use permit won't provide him?
I think it's the 3 units in the dwelling where the requirements in that B2 zone, the living quarters are up on the second floor and the commercials down below. And he would like
It does
to,
have- Line 6 does allow residential on the first floor as long as they don't exceed 900 square feet per dwelling. So, I mean, he might be able to accomplish what he wants within the existing zoning.
we can revisit that, but we didn't come to that conclusion.
Didn't you want to make three apartments down below?
He wants a
Yeah.
total of 3. He wants 2 down below and 1 up above.
So it just
Mine-
says for 3, you need a minimum of 1,000 square feet. First floor dwellings shall not exceed 900 square feet. That's permissible under a special use permit.
I still think you need the business too.
I don't know, it doesn't specify that.
I think it probably would be good to have him here. That way there, he can explain what he's doing himself.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah, obviously, yeah. Okay, no, I was just trying to hope of avoiding the whole need for a change if he can work around in the existing language.
I'll explore that with him. And, if it ends up being that way, then we can withdraw. But if not, then we'll come back.
Okay,
So at this point, does somebody want to make a motion to continue the public hearing until our February 22nd meeting?
sure, I'll make a motion. We continue the public hearing for PZ 2022-02 for 268 South Main Street, zone change from a B2 to an R1. Continue it to our next meeting, which is, I lost the date, the February
22nd, I think.
2nd. Thank you.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Okay, we have
Second.
a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say
Aye.
aye. Raise-
aye.
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 Okay, Peg, that was unanimous. Now we'll go back to our old business, which was PZ 2022-01, 44 Prospect Hill Road, site plan modification for Walmart. Is there somebody from Walmart available tonight?
Walmart has asked to modify their application to include a request for a reduction in the bulk parking requirements. They've responded to our staff memos and come back, and they are 21 spaces over what they were approved in their general development plan. And they're looking to reduce that to 3.9 to accommodate the loss of those 21 parking spaces. So they've asked to come back and be heard on March 8th.
Now, they're reconfiguring the parking lot so that net with the reconfiguration is now 21 spaces short
Correct.
because the building is taking up and the redesign.
Mhm.
I had put comments on the record to them concerning, were they going to consider solar as part of the building addition? And were they amenable to adding electrical vehicle charging infrastructure, given that they are right at the highway ramp and the ideal location for having EV charging? Did they respond to either of those?
They did respond. They were waiting for response back from corporate and initially asked for more time for their application because they know the Walmart corporate has sustainability goals and objectives of putting in EV charging stations. And if there was a thought to do it, why not do it now?
Well, they're disrupting
they're
the
working.
lot.
Right, so they wanted to get feedback on that. And then I would just add that there currently is solar panels on the roof of Walmart. Solar and natural light windows. Yeah.
And can they expand the solar on, add additional panels on the addition?
We didn't talk about that directly, but it's, the comments that you had provided that I forwarded on to them, that included that whole consideration of solar. So I would anticipate they'd address it in
Okay,
their response.
so are you looking for us to do something tonight to continue?
Well, I was hoping that we'd be able to modify. I didn't know if you needed a motion for that. I did draft one. I think so much goes on. I
guess
can't.
if they're looking for reduced parking, I would expect that they would offer up charging in exchange, so that they're doing something for getting that consideration. So I would think I would want to make the motion contingent upon acceptable EV charging infrastructure being included in the parking lot.
I got a question. What are they gonna do about the summertime when they have 60 parking lots full of mulch and all that on the right-hand side
Yeah,
all the time, which they're not supposed to be doing that either.
I guess they would have to discontinue that if they have a parking issue. I have never been in there where the parking lot was totally full. But if they lose 21 spaces and have 60 parking spots taken up by, I'll say, the garden center, they could definitely have a parking problem. Have they
So
done a traffic analysis, to show that they can make this work?
Not that I have seen, but I believe we need a public hearing to make the change to the bulk parking requirements. So that would be stuff we could send to them in a memo, things to include, considerations to be made. I mean, if they're already having the conversation with corporate about, EV charging and when on their master plan are these things getting rolled out, that would be informative too.
I agree with Jim that, if they're going to take up rows and rows of parking for the garden center in the spring, they need to demonstrate they can make this work. I tend to stay away from there on weekends, which is when it's busiest. So I have no personal knowledge if it's can work or can't work.
You might be hitting the nail on the head as to why the drive up and pick up your online order works.
And put 20 bags of mulch in my car. You can make them.
So,
have a-
go ahead.
Well, I have a quick question is, I guess in the original site plan, they already did a special use for parking. They reduced it already, so we're gonna reduce it again.
Mhm.
'Cause they're not
That's
even
the ask.
compliant now.
They
Can I
know.
jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was done under the HIZ. So it's a special development plan. So they submit their application and they say, we're going to build a building of this size. And we're going to provide parking spaces at a count of 4 per thousand. Even though the regs require more, because it's a special development district, when you approved the site plan, the whatever that site plan reflected became the zoning requirements for that parcel. So when you approved it at 4, that became their requirement. So even at the 4, they can't make this work with the increase. So they've got to come back to modify the general development plan under the HIZ. So it's similar to like a waiver or, sign up, you probably are thinking you're in variance territory. So it's a little bit different because of the special development district. It's up to them to prove that it's prudent. It's a prudent request. These are all things that you'll talk to them about, but you're not in hot water because the requirements of the zoning regs are different.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Well, I guess we have to wait to talk to them. I think that would be my recommendation, is wait to talk to them. I drive by there 2 to 3 times a day, and the place is always a zoo. Always, unless you're there, between midnight and 7 in the morning. Other than that, I am truly amazed at the amount of people that are in and out Walmart all day long. Amazed.
Yeah, no, I'm amazed how good a business they're doing. But I've always never had a problem finding a parking spot. But again, I steer clear of afternoons and weekends.
I think we
Well-
have to talk to them to solve a lot of our problems that we're talking about.
Yep. So at this point, the way that motion is written, it's written in the affirmative that we are recommending amending it.
The application,
Right, and,
the application. Because right
and
now they,
they-
yeah. Amending the
I don't-
application
none
to
of us,
request.
why, it's their site plan application.
Mhm.
And if we amend it, are we saying we are in favor of it, or are we saying we're moving
Well-
to consider amending?
Why don't we ask questions of the people involved here instead of trying to decipher them ourselves?
So maybe it's just a consensus and there's no motion necessary to schedule a public hearing. And we'll just have them submit this. I was thinking that the commission would be the one to say, yes, it's okay to amend what you asked for in the first place, to also include a request to lower the bulk parking requirements, not to grant it, but to say, we'll hold a public hearing on that matter. Yeah. So if it's fine for us to do that administratively and with just your, not a formal motion, that's fine too. And we'll just schedule the public hearing for March 8th.
I would be more comfortable letting them come in March 8th and defend their case than going forward saying we're amending. What
All I
they
wanted to
submit.
do is amend what they put in the blank. Why, what are you asking for? So
Yeah.
I wasn't, yeah. So we'll just do that administratively and schedule the public hearing for that.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Then we will move on to, we have no new business. Under other business, you have discussion of draft bond policy. You're muted, Ruth Ann.
How long have I been muted? I don't know. Oh, you should have received the draft bond policy in the packet. And the version that you have, it is a blending of an old policy that we had in town that Mike had updated with some language, and then our town attorneys went through and put their secret sauce on there. And so it lays out some structure around the types of sureties that we'll accept, some sample language to help craft, and the administrative bond agreement to have on file when we take cash and checks in. And also there's a discussion in here about maintenance bonds. So that once improvements are accepted by the town, there's a maintenance bond requirement for a year's worth of observation and make sure everything's in good shape.
My only comment on it, and I'm not skilled in bonds at all, but I feel like on what would be page 3, that the maintenance bond is about streets only. And given my experience with drainage problems, I wonder if drainage should be included too.
Has Lenny seen this?
He may not have.
Joe, have you guys seen this?
Yeah. I think
haven't
the only, yeah, the only, I guess, a maintenance, but as far as we're concerned on our end, a maintenance bond is a maintenance bond, so it's the whole development. It's not necessarily just a road. It's the drainage, it's the detention basins, it's even the light poles. That's how I've always interpreted a maintenance bond.
That, oops, sorry, Joe.
No.
That number 4 there is written and includes the term street acceptance because that's the last date that anything will happen on the property. That's probably the last thing that's going to happen. So we are allowed by statute to maintain or to take a maintenance bond. So the way that I read it, and we can certainly clarify under that full release, is that it would apply to anything that is allowed under the statute to be a part of the maintenance bond amount to be held. So if there were other things like you referenced, I think that would be included as part of that. We would take that.
And if
What
they did it
about-
right, there's no problems. The other thing I would say is, it referenced the town attorney will inspect. Do you think it should be maybe, not the town attorney, the town engineer or his or he's designee? What if somebody from Ruth's office goes out to look at it because Lenny's not available? Or what if I go out and look at it because Lenny's not available, and then, it says the town engineer. So I mean, I'm just throwing that out there because, I've looked at things for Lenny before, and not that it matters, but it could, I guess, if it push comes to shove.
Good comment. Mike, you wanted?
I mean, we can
Yeah.
certainly. Oh, sorry, I
mic.
didn't know it's Mike you mentioned. You're more important. You go.
Sorry. Well, we had previously discussed, like with the Harvest View estates, that developers tend to drag out this final road acceptance. Is there any way we could draft some language in here to put a timeline on this, so that they can't, that the road acceptance drags out for the longest period of time because they're not completing the last portion of the project, where, they've built their homes, they've sold it and made their profits. The roads they could really kind of care less about.
So I think, or I hope, maybe I should say I hope, given the discussion we just had, that the policy will potentially rectify that a little bit, because it speaks to the bond expiration. And it basically says that if they don't renew the bond within 60 days of expiration, the project is deemed to be in default and null and void. So the idea would be that they're not going to want to push off the road acceptance because the project's going to be tied to the bond. So if they've stopped and the bond comes due to expire, if they don't renew it, the town can take the money, and now you have a completed road in theory and the money. So, I don't know how we would demand that someone submit or request the road be accepted, because the only way the town would do that is if the road and the project completely compliant.
Can you put a limit on how many times they can renew their bond?
That is a good question. Could the town?
Can you, if the subdivision is good for 20 years under the statute?
Yeah, so I don't know that every project moving forward would fall under that extension. So it's not that every subdivision forever will be good for that long, but I think you would be pretty obligated to maintain and continue to approve a bond extension if the project was still active. And that's why there's some language, I believe, and I'm working on a second memo, or I might have finished it for Ruth, which basically says that one of the recommended conditions of approval that you guys will hopefully incorporate is that they're going to be required to have their bond time at least as long as the project. So the bond should not expire prior to the subdivision approval. Then you guys know that you don't have to worry, because if the bond expires, his approval expires.
Except the bond will be too small, because if it's put up in
Well-
year one and the
Well-
subdivision is good for 20 years, what a road
But-
costs is a lot more 20 years
Right,
later.
and we were talking about a condition of approval where the applicant would come in for a reassessment, right?
Yes,
To
But isn't
address
that
what
part of
Ann is talking about.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that part of the developer's agreement that the town engineer is supposed to reassess it after every few years? I don't remember how it's worded in there, to make sure that, and if the bond has to be increased, it needs to be increased. The other problem is if you put pressure on these developers to say you have to have it done by X, there's been quite extensive conversations about whether they can just go in and pave it and be done with it and then turn it over and continue the construction. There's good points and bad points to that. If they have to saw cut the road again, now we went from a brand new road to not. So to put contingencies, I think, with again with Ruth, she's changing that department all around. I think we'll be able to track this stuff a little better and know, hey, there's going to be a bond, expiring, and we'll have to stay on top of it more than, we don't have like a crazy amount of developments going. We just had a lot of turnover in that department, and that's where we lose track.
Mike,
Would there be any benefit to putting in some verbiage about if a project has been deemed inactive over a certain, you give 6 months or even a year, that then we begin, either calling the bond or, something, so we don't end up with like this one that's over there next to Sophia's Plaza that's now sitting and there's no activity going on at all.
we can't, I don't know how we could do that, because if statute says the project is good for X, if it's good for 9 years, they could wait 8.5 years and build it all in 6 months. It's just a matter of making sure that, go ahead.
I'm just thinking, once you start construction, can you drag it out for 9 years, put up a couple of shingles at a time and just leave it like that?
From a statutory perspective, under planning and zoning, yes, a building permit expires after 180 days of inactivity. So if they let the project sit for 9 or 10 months, all those building permits are toast, in most circumstances. So that part would stop, but your approval, you can't really speed up the clock unless you can prove that they've missed some deadlines. Some places will structure approvals with specific schedules. XYZ shall be installed by this date. XYZ shall be completed 6 months thereafter. If you include performance standards with timeframes and they are conditions of approval and they don't meet them, they're now in violation of their approval and you have some leverage. But to get back to Ruth's point, the follow-up that we're working on is to try to get this burden off of the town and put it back on the applicant. So we're working on some conditions that you would include in your approval that basically says, we're thinking of something along the lines of every February, anybody that has a bond and a project in progress has to go before the commission and give us an update on where you are, what's been done, what's left, and then we'll review the bond, we'll determine if it's adequate and go from there. But that's a part of their condition of approval. So every February, everybody knows all of our projects are coming in and we don't have to track the individual schedules of each project. And it again, by having it as a condition of approval, if they don't come in, March 1st, they're in violation, and you now have something you can issue a cease and desist under.
Or
Okay.
call their bond. The other thing is with developers, the only suggestion I can make is with developers, if you hit them in the pocketbook, what if we upped our bond structure? What if it wasn't, instead of 5, it was 10 or 15%? I don't know if we can do that, but if you hit them in the pocketbook and we're holding a good hunk of their money or a decent hunk, then, you know, they'll move a lot
I
quicker.
want
for
it,
us.
yep. That's a good suggestion if that can be done.
If it please the chair, I'd like to actually offer a couple comments, just because we've had so much, ever since, 3 years ago now, when we first started the current board's term, we had a lot of issues with this. We've been stung, and actually it's the taxpayers that have been stung on this. So like we do have, I think the Board of Selectmen has a pretty good interest in this policy. And I agree with Joe's comments regarding the town engineer. It should be town engineer and or designee, because things change over time. But also with the developers agreement, that the review that he mentioned, I wonder if we could also have a bond review at that point in time, and as a way to effectuate the ability, when a development goes slack for a while, and all of a sudden now, there's erosion and there's an issue, and we don't know, things are getting messed up, like West Farms a couple years ago. Actually, yeah, it was a couple years ago. There was a big issue there and had to be dealt with. And so, if we had the ability on these inactive ones to, review the bond at that time that we're reviewing the agreement, the developer's agreement, then we would be able to, up it, call it, whatever, I don't know. So there's that. And the last thing I would like to say is on the part that is, that refers to changing the policy, the modification of this policy, and it says that the commission, it would be approved by the commission, and maybe they may consult these others. I think that it should, at least in the short term, also I think it should have to be approved by the finance department and the first selectman at a minimum. And it would be the first selectman's prerogative to inform the Board of Selectmen, just so we make sure that over the next couple of years, as we're getting better at this, that we don't, that everybody knows what's going on and everybody's got some skin in the game. The Selectman's office is, the one that's ultimately responsible to the taxpayers who, they're the ones that have taken the beating for this over the years. So that's all I got. Thanks.
I think that's a good point, Ruth Ann and Mike, to run it by the first selectman, this draft too. Any addition? You're on mute, Ruth Ann.
I'm just losing my Zoom mojo. Where I'm at. So, yeah, Amy O'Toole has reviewed this document, or has received it to review. I know she's in the middle of her budget process, but she has it. First Selectman has seen it as well.
Good.
But it is a good point that if we're going to modify the policy, that they would also be part of that. And so
Okay.
the may can change.
Any further discussion on this tonight? Okay, we will move on. Under correspondence, we have the invite to the training, which we're going to take up later. Anything else? Assuming you're on mute again, Ruth Ann.
I don't think that there is
Okay, just wanted to check.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, we got an invite for the annual planning and zoning training. It is on March 24th. And the town can submit, if assuming we have the funding, a list of names. So who would like to go? I can't, I'm away that week. Okay,
Frank, we're
everybody,
picking you up.
so Ruth Ann, everybody but me is going. That includes
Okay.
Dave too.
And I think I'm up for 12 years of service.
Oh,
Check.
then we'll have to
Yeah.
nominate
I want
you.
my little sticker.
You want your sticker? All right, we'll look at
Frank, do
everybody's.
you have the 25 years of service?
I don't know. I got a few. I don't know, 25, 30. I don't know how many I got. Too many.
45.
25,
45.
40. Well, I could be. I thought you were guessing my age, but
If you have a way to look up the years of
Yeah.
service for Frank and Jim, if they meet the criteria, will you nominate them for us?
Certainly, yep.
And then the other item under the business meeting is we feel like you're on overload and apologize. You had to cover the office as a one-person show. I'm wondering if there's any progress you can share on trying to find a zoning enforcement officer.
Yes, we have good things to say. We have offered, and offer have been accepted by a woman by the name of Danielle Miller, sorry. Danielle Miller. She starts on Monday, actually. And she comes to us with a master's in planning. She has several years under her belt. She's working down in the New Orleans area of Louisiana, and Gretna is the name of the town she was working in. Highly regarded, and I think she'll be a good addition.
That's very exciting.
Yeah,
We'll have help.
well, let's not discount Mr. D'Amato.
Oh, well, we
glue.
want to keep Mr. D'Amato too. And it wasn't discounting him, but
Here, wait, I'll turn off my speakers. You can say how you all really feel and give you 30 seconds.
Joe can have his old job back.
That's right.
So yeah, we're excited.
Joe's retired.
okay. Nothing else under business meeting? Nothing under executive session, so a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Duh.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mike. So it's 7:23 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
See you in 2 weeks on the
Sure.
computer. Bye.